Nikachu, when are we going to start throwing things on this channel? Well, I just did. Everyone, this is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and today I would like to talk about playing modern on a budget. We're going to dispel some myths in this video today, and I would like to take some time talking about how budget magic is important for getting people into modern, but I would like to say that, I don't think there's been a whole lot of barriers to budget magic. I think budget magic has been around the entire time. The problem is that there's not enough people out there building archetypes in budget form to show people how they could play it in a budget way. So let's talk about, let's start off with the biggest misconception at all, that you need fetch lands. The barrier to modern is the fetch lands. They need to reprint the fetch lands. If they don't reprint the fetch lands, no one can get into modern. It's impossible. Don't even try. If you don't have fetch lands, go to Pauper. Pauper's there for you. What are you, ridiculous? Let's theory craft for a second. Let's say they ban fetch lands tomorrow. Do all the decks playing fetch lands just die instantly? Liliana the Veil's not going to walk on a land that is not fetch. What are you kidding me? Tarmogoyf does not traverse over any territory that is not a Verdun catacombs. I mean, it just blows my mind that people have this invisible barrier that you absolutely need fetch lands to play modern. If they banned fetch lands tomorrow, nothing would happen. Very, very few things would happen. Some cards would change in evaluation. Like Searing Blaze would get a little bit worse. Or Ren and 6 would get a little bit worse, but would still be played. Probably the Blood Moon decks would get better because people can no longer fetch 4 basic lands. But in the grand scheme of things, nothing would happen. Nothing would happen. All the decks would still be there. Then makes me wonder, why are fetch lands so important in people's minds? Like, if I don't have fetch lands, then my Tarmogoyf isn't going to work anymore. If I don't have fetch lands, Liliana the Veil doesn't work. I mean, it's just ridiculous to me. It completely blows my mind. The mana base is so expensive in modern, mostly on the fetch lands and some of the fast lands. But the mana in modern is so good otherwise. The mana base even for standard is incredible these days. You can easily make like 5-color mana bases with all the lands available. If you look at the Jund deck, seriously, look at the price of the Jund deck. Like $600 is in their fetch lands, their mana base. It's insane. You could buy a whole modern deck for that amount of money. It's possible. And it makes me wonder, like you really gotta look at it this way. Let's look at Verdun Catacombs versus Woodland Cemetery. Now, is Verdun Catacombs better than Woodland Cemetery? Absolutely. Objectively, it is a better card. No, I'm not debating that whatsoever. However, how much better of a card is it than Woodland Cemetery? How much more of a win rate are you going to get playing Verdun Catacombs over Woodland Cemetery? Maybe twice as much? Maybe 3 times as much? And actually, I don't think so. I don't think Verdun Catacombs is like 2 times better than Woodland Cemetery. Maybe 75% more better. Like better. I'm not denying it. But then when you look at the price of both of them, you're gonna throw up. Because Woodland Cemetery, which adds black and green mana, is $4. And the fetch land is like $50. Huge difference. So even though Verdun Catacombs is maybe like 2 times better, it ends up being like 15 times more in price. It's sickening. So is it worth it? And the answer is no, it's not worth it. It's not worth it at all. And I don't think price is as big of a barrier into Modern as people believe. Now, every single year, or not even every year, every 6 months, I post an updated budget Modern Merfolk deck. Does not have Ether Vial, doesn't have any expensive cards. I make sure that the price of the deck is $100 or less. Because I am the Merfolk Master, I know how to design this deck still in budget form. Is it going to be top tier competitive? Hell no. However, are you playing at a top tier level? Are you going to the Pro Tour? Well, most of the time, no. You're not going to the Pro Tour. You're not going to a Grand Prix. You're going to your F&M. Maybe you're playing queues online, or maybe you're in the tournament practice room. And you know what? Budget decks are completely competitive in those environments because the players aren't as competitive. You know, there are many different advantages when you're playing Magic the Gathering. Like, one is the power of your deck, the power of the cards in the deck, but also your play skill. And because the average play skill comes down so much, you know, at an F&M level or more casual level online, the disadvantage you get from playing on a budget just disappears. Seriously, it just disappears. It's not that big of a deal. Now, we talked about roughly the fetch lands, but you can do the same thing with normal cards. So you don't need to play the fetch lands. Just play some other mana base. That's going to work. It's going to be fine. I promise you, it's going to be fine. There's nothing wrong. Nothing bad is going to happen. You could still look at the same thing with cards. You can substitute very expensive cards for much cheap cards. Take a look at Tarmogoyf. Why play with Tarmogoyf when you can play with Grimflare, which is a very comparable substitute and significantly cheaper and still powerful in its own right. I looked at every deck in Modern, and I can tell you flat out that for most of them, I could build a semi-competitive version of those decks for $100 or less. For most of them. I'm pretty sure I can build all of them for $150 or less. And I really encourage the masters out there of their archetypes to show people the way. What does the deck look like on a budget? Because it's possible. But most people aren't willing to put in the time or effort to build it and show people who are trying to get into Modern what it looks like. And then people just have these misconceptions that you need like $2,000 to play Modern, which I don't think is true. I think you can enter at $150 and then slowly over time you buy into the more expensive cards to replace your cheaper substitutes. But like I really gotta say, screw the mana bases. Screw everyone who says, oh, the fetch lands are so important to get into Modern. Forget all that crap. Focus on the core cards. Play with a budget mana base. It's fine. It will work. I promise you. It's gonna be okay. Because I don't want that to be a barrier for everybody getting into Modern. So let's talk about how it is important that Modern slows down so that budget decks can have some presence in Modern. I thought it was a very interesting point someone brought out that if the metagame's too fast, then budget decks actually do have a problem. Especially if it's like... Of course, you know, with a budget mana base, you're probably going to be a turn slower than you would like to be. And therefore, to be a turn slower just based on a budget deck, you're not going to like be in the game whatsoever if people are winning on turn 3. So I thought that was a very interesting perspective from the budget players, that they think Modern should be slow enough so that it can encourage more people on a budget to enter the format, and then from there rebuild their deck over time to reach normal tier status. But I'm telling you that like Modern can be entered on a budget. This is not as an elitist of a format as people think. It's not. I can see every single deck, how they could be played on a budget. You just scrap the expensive cards. There's always some cheaper substitute. You know, it's not going to be that bad. It's not going to be as scary as you think it is. You know, if for example, sometimes Relic of Progenitus was like $10 to $15. Well, then just play Tormod's Crypt, which is like 50 cents. Is that so bad? Is it? Is it really so bad? Come on, you're going to survive. Don't worry about it. So budget decks, I think, have a place in Modern, and I think you can get into Modern if you can put aside the belief that you need these expensive cards, you need the expensive lands to play it. Take a look at Liliana the Veil. Forget Liliana. She is Liliana of the $100. You do not need Liliana of the $100. There are plenty of other great planeswalkers that are very strong, very effective, that are much cheaper. I mean, like, forget Liliana of the $100. Go with Chandra of the $5. She's just as hot. She is looking for a good time. Take her out for a walk. There's also like things like Garruk Relentless. It's a 4-mana planeswalker, and it's like $4 or $5 as of the making of this video. And that is a super powerful planeswalker. It can destroy creatures, it can tutor for creatures, it can make creatures. Like, there are plenty of playable substitutes in the place of these super expensive planeswalkers. Are they objectively the best? Yes, and that is why people have been just throwing all their money at those particular planeswalkers. But is Liliana the Veil like 250 times better than some of these other planeswalkers? Is she? No, I don't really think so. I think there are plenty of great cards that you can play at 3 and 4 mana that are comparable to the power of Liliana the Veil. Not as powerful, of course, but still good. And I would really encourage all the masters of their archetype to build budget versions of their deck to help bring more people into Modern. Just as I do with my budget Modern Merfolk deck. But Merfolk could be built for $1,000, but I show people how they can build it for less than $100. So I hope you like what I have to say today. Budget decks are still possible. Let me know, do you play a budget deck out there? How do you build your deck on a budget? What are you running right now that you're upgrading over time? This has been Nikachu, Merfolk Master, talking about budget magic in Modern.